This is Lost Adventure, and today we're going back to the Thunder Rift setting and covering one of the box sets released at the time, The Haunted Tower. Now, The Haunted Tower was released back in 1992, and its main designer was a woman named Julia Martin. Now, this specific box set, if the cover doesn't already, give you a clue, is mainly about dealing with the undead. And each of these box sets, there were, I think, 3 of them. You had the Goblin's Den, the Dragon's Lair, and the Haunted Tower. Each included 3 adventures. Not just one. The box set wasn't just one adventure. It was 3 separate adventures. Now, each of the adventures was small, about 18 pages each. But they were all like what's the word I'm looking for? Self-contained. That's good enough. That's close enough. By that, I mean that each of the adventures could be run either as one singular adventure, like all 3 are just, for example, this one, all 3 are just one tower, or they could each be a separate, smaller encounter. The box sets also contained full-size poster maps that are part of the adventure. You wouldn't need to draw anything on a mat. Everything was there, and it included all the paper minis you would need, along with some cardboard props that you would add onto the maps that help it become either, more interactive. Now, this box set includes 3 adventures. You got the Fighter's Academy, the Towers of Evil, and finally, the Lair of the Vampire Lord. That's in numerical order, too. You will first go to the Fighter's Academy, and then you'll deal with the Towers, and then you'll deal with the Lair of the Vampire, if you're running it all as one adventure. The story hinges upon, this is the Fighter's Academy. If you guys are familiar with the Thunder Rift setting, in Thunder Rift there was 2 major organizations. You had the Wizards Academy and the Fighters Academy. The 2 were always in a fight with each other. Both ended up, they had a mutually assured destruction thing going on. So once the Fighters Academy died, the leftover fighters ended up killing all the wizards. Well, this is the end result of the Wizards' attack on the Fighters Academy. You see, what they did was they changed the entire territory around the Fighters Academy into a swamp. And they call it the Gloom Fens here. And pretty much all the occupants inside the Fighters Academy at the time were they were all killed. Some came back as undead, and they still believe that possibly the fight is still going on. They don't know that a year after the Academy was annihilated, a group of warriors had infiltrated Wizard Spire, which was the big Wizard Academy, and killed all the wizards inside of it. That ends up being, pointed out in the Thunder Rift book, Shield and Sword. So anyways, the leader of the warriors at the time was a guy named Sir Jameson the Defender. He's still there. He's as a specter, and his second in command, Sir Matheson, is also still, somewhat still there in his head, and he exists as a mummy. The location that either of these 2 individuals are at differs on whether or not the players are using it as a singular adventure or as 3 separate adventures. For example, Sir Matheson can be found as the boss of the Fighters Academy if you're doing all 3 at once. However, if you're not, you're doing all 3 as separate adventures, Sir Matheson will be found as the commander of a watchtower that was built by the Academy and is the big bad of the Towers of Evil adventure. Now, to make things a little bit simpler to understand, here's a picture of, the tower. This section right here is going to be the 3 levels of the Fighters Academy. This section here is the 3 levels of the Towers of Evil, and down here is where the Lair of the Vampire is supposed to be. Now, obviously, if you're running these as 3 separate adventures, it's completely different. Instead, you'll just have a 3-level Fighters Academy somewhere else, a 3-level tower that's the Watchtower in some other location, and you can just throw the Lair of the Vampire in the middle of wherever you want to. But let's pretend that we're going to go ahead and run it as a single adventure. Here, in the Fighters Academy, you will run into Sir Matheson. He'll be the end boss for the Fighters Academy. Up here in the Towers of Evil, the end boss will be Sir Jameson himself. And then down here, it's always going to be Lord Ursus Longmane, Vampire. Now, if you're running each as its own separate adventure, Sir Jameson would instead be the end boss of the Fighters Academy. Sir Matheson would be the Watch Commander leader of the Evil Towers. And then Lord Ursus Longmane will continue to be the evil vampire lord that's found in a basement somewhere. Each of the booklets has a way to use the adventure on its own. There's not much there. It's not complicated because Thunder Rift was not designed to be a really complicated setting. It was supposed to be a really simplified setting that anybody could just jump into. All the quests pretty much start with a cleric requesting the assistance of the players to go get rid of this great evil. And specifically with the Sir Jameson one, they want you to go over there and put his soul to rest. Because he wasn't really a bad guy from what I've gathered. The Fighters Academy wasn't bad people at all. The rewards are pretty substantial. So the rewards are a whole bunch of treasure. He'll start you off giving you a bunch of supplies. And you will end up getting a royal title at the end of it. Now, each of these adventures is designed for 4 to 6 characters of 3rd to 5th level, and it's highly advisable that in between each section, the players should be able to rest. Obviously, use some common sense when they decide to rest. If they decide to sleep in the middle of a fortress that they haven't fully cleared out, well, they're in for some bad news, and it even goes into examples of what happens if they don't clear out certain rooms. Conveniently, each adventure has a DM's map on the back of it, and the DM's map it's way more than anything else you get in any other adventure nowadays. It actually has specific locations where each monster is going to be. The whole thing, this whole box set, is pretty much 3 separate 3-level dungeons that are pre-populated for you. We'll go ahead and start with the Fighters Academy first. Like I said, it's 3 levels, and there's 27 separate encounter locations. Here's the map. Like I said, see how it shows all these different letters here? Those are where all the monsters are located. It includes a little chart on the side over here that tells you what each one of the letters stands for. You'll notice in room 24 and room 7, there's these staircases. On the player's poster map, those staircases aren't there. It's just an empty room. However, the box set does include cardboard cutouts of those stairs that you can put in there if you decide to make this all one adventure. The stairs in 24 will take you to the Towers of Evil, while the stairs in number 7 will take you to the Lair of the Vampire. In regards to the build of this adventure, Julia's done a pretty good job of populating what an academy would be like. She's got all the stuff in there. Number 3 is a training center. Number 12 is a gym. Number 15 over here is a barracks. And number 1's pretty much the entrance of the castle itself. Well, not the castle, the academy, but it's designed like a castle. So you could actually take this adventure and make it into it could be your Fighters Guild. You could use the entire layout for this thing as the Fighters Guild for your campaign setting if you wanted to. Now, in regards to really interesting locations in this adventure, number 1's obviously going to be the entrance. This is where the players will have to deal with 10 skeletons. They'll first deal with a group of 6, and a few rounds later, another 4 will join into the fight, which is where all the SX is at. Number 12 actually has 3 whites inside of it that are hidden underneath rotting gym mats. And that D right there is actually going to be a skeleton or a corpse of one of the previous victims who's holding a glowing dagger to try and, trick the players to get in between all 3 of them before they get ambushed. Number 3 is actually it's like a training center, like a mechanical training center. It doesn't work anymore. It's not really that interesting, but I thought it was kind of cool that she put it in there. Number 8 is the dining hall. And when the players go into the dining hall, they'll find 4 ghouls trying to eat a displacer beast until the players show up, in which case then everybody's interested in eating the players. And room number 20 up here, room 20 is where you'll find either Sir Jameson or Sir Matheson, depending on if you're running the adventure one way or the other. There is a line for where the bad guy says something to the players once they find him. It doesn't matter who's actually there. It can be Sir Jameson or Sir Matheson. It's the exact same line. Oh, one last place that will be a little bit of fun is room number 15. This is the barracks, and all the students are still there. There's zombies or skeletons, depending on whatever, letters currently in the block. And they don't come to life to attack the players until one of the players tries to remove the covers on top of one of the corpses. So that'll be another fun little battle. And that's it for, the Fighters Academy. If the players do what they're supposed to go up the stairs into the Towers of Evil, though it does suggest that the players should rest before they go up there. And it includes an entire section of if they didn't kill the monsters in this room or deal with the monsters in this room, this is what's going to happen. Julia does a pretty good job in, giving directions to a brand new DM. It's almost, step by step. Now, the Towers of Evil have a bit of a surprise to the players that are expecting just to run into your basic undead like they dealt with in the Fighters Academy. The first thing they're going to run into right after they get to the top of the stairs over here is going to be a room full of statues. Really lifelike statues, too. Like, there's a raven in mid-flight, there's a couple skeletons in armor, and there's a reason for this. There's a cockatrice, living in this room. Over here is just a ochre jelly room. That's not really that important. But the other thing with this entire section is there is an entire group of gnolls living here that are trying to do some sort of religious pilgrimage. So the players have to deal with that, along with a surprise den of werewolves that will not first appear as werewolves, will instead try to trick the players and thinking they're just normal adventurers before trying to murder them in their sleep or the second they can get the players separated from the party. There's 2 of them, and they also have 2 wolves with them. There's some regular undead up here too, but there's also a gargoyle lair with 2 gargoyles. There's a library that is inhabited by a wraith, and right here is the master bedroom where the players will deal with either Sir Matheson if this is a singular adventure, as in you're running the towers as the watchtower out in the wilderness, or you'll find Sir Jameson if you're doing the entire haunted tower adventure. Oh, and if the players decide to climb the ladder to get to the roof of the keep, well, there's a wyvern. Now, a wyvern has decided to make the roof its lair, so the players get to deal with that. After the players defeat Sir Jameson and put him inside this magical shroud that you originally sent with for all the big undead monsters you find, you're supposed to stick them inside these shroud things. The feeling inside of the academy will get a little bit lighter. It'll feel less dreadful. And you'll see his spirit materialize in front of you, and he'll say all this sort of stuff thank you for releasing me from my torture. It's been a horrible situation the entire time. I'm glad to be free of this earthly realm. And I should let you guys know there is something truly evil living in the basement. There's a vampire lord down there. And thus the players will go to the final adventure, the vampire lair. Oh, excuse me. The Lair of the Vampire Lord. Now, this adventure differs from the previous 2. This one is mainly occupied by not, undead members of the Academy, but more occupied by monsters that have decided to call this place home. There's a bunch of undead here, but they're more of the higher thinking undead that control a series of undead that are underneath their command. They use the liege system, which makes it so, let's say a wight has 4 skeletons that he actually physically controls or mentally controls. Those 4 skeletons can't be turned like normal skeletons. They have to be turned like they're wights. And also, the wight can see through the skeleton's eyes, or actually eye sockets, because they don't have eyes. So when running this, you got to keep in mind there's that going on. It specifically mentions where it's applicable inside each one of the rooms. You got some carrion crawlers. There's a doppelganger in here that has disguised itself as one of the previous victims of the vampire and will try and get the adventurers to save it. And if the doppelganger is left in a room with a singular adventurer, will try and kill the adventurer and take their place. So there's some role-playing opportunities there too. We got a gelatinous cube, and there's also a wraith involved in this part. The vampire himself is the main leader of this level. His main minions are going to be the dire wolves that he has with him. Well, he's got dire wolves and wolves. No bats, which is kind of odd for, a vampire, but it's what we got here. His thing is wolves. Lord Ursus Longmane is actually a vampire mage. He was actually a level 5 wizard when he was turned. And he's an 8 hit die monster, with the usual immunities like most normal vampires. It's already got a description in here how the fight will start off, because, the vampire will learn of the adventurers before they even get to him, and he'll have cast mirror image, and he'll continue to use magical spells as a way to try and fight the enemies. He doesn't really want to get into close combat, but he will. And also, before the players get to him, cast haste on himself and the 2 dire wolves that are in the room with him. So this is not going to be a super easy battle, but the players are provided with all the equipment they need from the beginning. As long as they didn't waste it, they should be fine. And that's what you can find in the Haunted Tower adventure. Now, for rating this thing, let's see. This one's kind of weird to rate because it's 3, and it's not 3 really great adventures. It's 3 mediocre adventures. We'll give it a 3 for the adventure rating. For value, this is... So you can find the box set online on eBay for like $120 to $300, depending on how lucky you are. It's going to get a 2. You can buy the PDF online from DM's Guild for like $6, I think. But that one also apparently is not complete. I actually have the box set. I scrounged it up by buying 2 separate eBay listings. One was just for the box, and the other one actually had the books and everything inside of it. I ended up paying $80 altogether. Yeah, I felt like it was worth $80. But if anybody's asking you to pay more than $180 for this thing, don't. It's not that great. For deadliness, I'll give this a 3. It's mediocre deadliness. The amount of equipment and treasure that's provided straight from the beginning is pretty extensive. I mean, as long as the players don't waste it all, like trying to use all the holy water on a zombie, they should be fine. And the amount of gold that is given as a reward for this adventure may be a little excessive. But that was pretty par for course for the Thunder Rift adventure modules. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think Julia did a bad job with these modules. I think she did a pretty good job, actually. She did an okay job. I just feel like the setting itself was very limiting. And that's going to be it for today. I hope this helps somebody out there, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.